right, man. What's the deal, man? It's your boy, it's Bill Walker, man. The Fix. Come and get all your sports news. You understand what I'm saying? Look, check this out, man. Give you the quick topics of the day. As you can see, it's in the title. Today is April 25th, 2025. We just had the first day of the NFL draft class of 2025, and we had maybe some may consider it to be some surprises. Some may not consider it to be a surprise about who did and didn't get drafted. So with that being said, let's get into it, right? So we have the 2025 draft. I also want to touch on the thoughts of Coach Prime, what he said about Dan Orlovsky, okay? And I want to touch on a little bit about the Shannon Sharp situation, give my quick opinions on that. Also, we're going to make predictions of the Connor Ben and the Chris Eubanks fight. So I'm not going to take up a whole lot of y'all time today. I just want to get in here and give my quick thoughts about this. And if anybody knows me when I say quick, that means, probably at least 45 minutes. So, man, with that being said, I'm going to wait a few minutes. I know some guys said they wanted to get in here, jump in, and discuss some of these topics with me. We'll give those guys a couple of minutes to jump in here. If they don't, I'm going to jump right into it. We're going to get right down to it, man. We're going to go through all 32 teams. We're going to address whether teams picked up players that they needed, right? Or some teams went out on the ledge and just kind of said, hey, this player is just so good, we cannot pass up on him. So, again, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to jump in here, and then we're going to get right down to it, man. All right, man. I'm back in here. So check this out, man. We're gonna jump right into it. So last night sparked the beginning of the 2025 draft. Right here we have all the picks. And look, check this out, man. I think there was a lot of speculation about when Travis Hunter would be drafted. Cam Ward was obviously the consensus number one pick for most people. And then also you had big names like Shador Sanders and other guys, right? So with that being said, man, so we're gonna start off with the first draft pick, right? So Cam Ward was the first guy off the board, right? So to me, it's obvious that Tennessee definitely needs a quarterback. They have been needing a quarterback for a very, very long time. For whatever reason, man, when guys go over there, it's just I don't know if it's the point that guys just don't want to play in Tennessee, because this is the deal right here when it comes to the Tennessee Titans for me personally. If you are a very, very good free agent, right, and you play in the quarterback position, is Tennessee somewhere you actually want to go and play? Right? And I can understand maybe if you're from around that area and you say, hey, I just want to go back home and I want to play in Tennessee. But if you're a viable option at the quarterback position and you go out in free agency, I don't see any guys saying, you know what, sign me up. I want to go play for the Titans, right? So if they do end up with a good quarterback, it's probably going to be because they drafted one. With that being said, they took Cam Ward with the first pick. So I do think Tennessee Titans absolutely 110% addressed uh, uh, the position that they needed, right? Obviously, those guys need a whole lot more over there. They've been a struggling franchise for quite some time. But it starts with the quarterback position. I think Cam Ward for this draft class is the obvious choice. And the Tennessee Titans didn't go out on the ledge and pick somebody crazy. They picked the best quarterback to come out of the 2025 draft class, and that's Cam Ward. So I do think they addressed their issues. Now, on to the next. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who actually traded down to get the Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, right? So let me just talk about him real quick. So the young man made history, right? He is the first DB slash wide receiver to be drafted, right? So he's the first DB wide out off the board, right? So a lot of people are saying this guy's a 2-for-1 player. Personally, I do think he can be a 2-for-1 player, but this is the NFL, and if I have explained to you guys before offline that I talked to, that it's a lot of planning and strategies that go in week to week. Talking about competing at this level. Now, do I think Travis Hunter can compete at this level? I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't know, right? That's something that we're going to have to see. But he is a Heisman Trophy winner, and he does have outstanding athletic ability. He has proven himself on the college level. Do I think he's the best route runner when it comes to the offensive side of the ball? No. But what he does have, he has the ability to track the ball very, very well, and he does have really, really good hands, right? Um, that's half the battle. But you're going to have to be able to create separation because you're going to be going up against the best of the best in the NFL. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I absolutely think that Travis Hunter would probably be better on the defensive side of the ball. Um, I mean, he's a natural DB to me personally, So if I'm a coach, I'm going to heavily focus on that particular side of the ball, and find a way to get him involved in offense and defense. But when it comes down to it, where we need you the most is probably going to be on the defensive side of the ball. Okay. I know he's a guy that says, hey, don't even draft me if you don't want to let me play both ways. Now, that's a big ask. Okay. Uh, but obviously, Jacksonville said, hey, you know what? We're going to take this kid and we're going to potentially allow him to play on both sides of the ball. I don't have any idea what that looks like, okay, because it's never really been done before, not at the level in which Travis Hunter is talking about doing it. But with that being said, hey, we're going to get to witness history again, right? With him potentially playing maybe a 60-40 split, maybe a 50-50 split. I have no idea how these coaches are going to map this one out. I am very interested to see it, though. So shout out to them, man. Shout out to Travis Hunter, man, for making history, being the first DB wide out to go. And shout out to Jacksonville taking a shot on the young man. Basically swapping out the pick, getting down there to get Travis Hunter. All right, now, New York Giants, okay? Abdul Carter. All right, so this is guys from Penn State, right? So when it comes to him, I think he's a talented kid, big kid. I think that the New York Giants looked at the draft and they said, hey, you know what? We need to get a good edge rusher. Now, with that being said, you have to take into consideration the um, the division, NFC East, right? So when you look at the NFC East and you look at the quarterback in the NFC, right? You got Jaden Daniels, you have Jalen Hurts, you have Dak Prescott, and obviously we don't know who's quarterback going to be in New York. but he's not playing against his own team, so it doesn't matter, right? But the quarterbacks that he's going to play 2 times a year, you need a guy that can come off that edge, that can disrupt the offensive line and potentially get sacks because you do have quarterbacks that can tuck the ball and run. So I don't see a problem with the Giants going the edge rusher first. Hey, look, when they won the Super Bowl, they had one of the best defensive lines in the league, and they beat Tom Brady, right, who had a phenomenal offensive line. So you never can go wrong, man, with a generational talent at defense or a guy who you think can be really, really good that can contribute right away. And I think the guy from Penn State, Abdul Carter, is one of those guys. So shout out to the Giants. You understand what I'm saying? For going defense first, man. And again, we didn't know they were going to go quarterback or what, but they decided to go defense, and I think that was smart because it's not a lot of. I just think honestly, it's a better pick than go and get a quarterback right away because everybody doesn't need a quarterback. You can wait that time out and do exactly what they did later on in the draft, and we'll get to that in a minute. But defense first, Abdul Carter went number 3. Great pick by those guys. So yes, they did address something that they needed. All right, now New England Patriots with the number 4 pick. They went with Will Campbell, LSU offensive tackle. Um, Look, the Patriots absolutely need somebody to protect their quarterback, right? They got a new coaching regime over there, and truth be told, those guys want to be physical, right? Going to get the offensive tackle Will Campbell from LSU. I think they did that. I think they went and they addressed it of someone that's going to protect their quarterback. I think the Patriots has a lot of pieces that need to be addressed, but you never can go wrong if you feel like you have a franchise quarterback and he's not getting the time or he's not getting the assets that he needs to be successful in the NFL. So yes, I absolutely think that the New England Patriots went out, got an offensive tackle, and that's exactly what they needed to do. So yeah, shout out to them. Again, they're one of those teams that's not in a super duper great division. So they can, by default, come out of that division, right? Somebody has to win that division, right? But with that being said, they did address the position that they needed, and that was offensive tackle. All right, we're going down to number 5, right? Um, hey, look, the Cleveland Browns, right, who historically been a horrible franchise, right? We don't even have to go down that line, but look, check this out right there. Number 5, they went with Mason Graham, again, defensive tackle, right? They just gave Myles Garrett big money, right? So again, we have another team that's going defense. But hey, look, man, let's be real, man. A lot of these offenses in NFL, man, they're picking up pace. So that's why you see a lot of these teams going defense first because these guys have to stay ahead of their curveball because the game has been designed to give the offense a slight edge. So a lot of these organizations are saying, hey, we need to go get defenders that can stop these dual threat quarterbacks, first and foremost, because that's kind of what the league has turned into, dual threat quarterbacks. All these guys as gunslinger can also put that thing down and run for the necessary yards, right? So, hey, look, the game is evolving, and a lot of teams are saying we need to go defense first because we need to have the guys that can stop these offenses, right? And they went defensive tackle, right? They went interior to match up with a very talented edge rusher, Myles Garrett, one of the best in the NFL. With that being said, I do think Cleveland addressed exactly what they need. So far, no surprises outside of um, them trading down, Jacksonville trading down to get Travis Hunter. All right. Number 6 pick, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. Shout out to the Raiders, man, organization, man. You know I got much love for y'all always. With that being said, You have those guys going to get Aston Genty, the running back from Boise State. Hey, look, to me, great pick, right? Those guys' run game was essentially non-existent in 2024. All right. So by them saying, hey, you know what? We need to go get Ashton Genty, who some people compare him to his vision, compares his vision to Emmitt Smith. They addressed that last night during the draft. A lot of people made that comparison. Hey, look, man, I just think he's a talented guy. I think he runs the ball well. Something that's very underrated in his game is his ability to catch the ball. Didn't catch the ball a whole lot in 2024, but in 23, he had close to 50 catches. So he is a guy that can bring that aspect of catching the ball as well as getting you hard yards, yards after contact. So I do think the Vegas Raiders, somebody who had essentially no running game last year, has addressed that issue with Ashton Genty, a guy that I wish probably would have dropped down to the start as Cowboys, but you know, it is what it is, right? So shout out to the Raiders going and get a nice generational running back, man. Somebody who performed really, really well on the college level and wants to continue that progress on the NFL level. So shout out to the Raiders. They definitely addressed a position that they need. All right, we're going number 7, New York Jets. Right, the New York Jets got Armand Nabu. I don't know if I'm saying that right, man. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, brother. But offensive tackle, again, somewhere else with a new coaching regime. Look, I think again, you never can go wrong with building out a foundational football team, and that's starting with the big boys. Especially if you're a new coach with a new coaching regime, and you want to protect your quarterback and give your quarterback, your running backs, your skill positions time to flourish, right? So, look, offensive tackle, right? They went offensive tackle. The guy was at Missouri, and far as what I seen, he looks like a pretty talented kid. I can't give a full breakdown of what I think about him because I've only seen a few clips. But with that being said, I do think they also addressed a position that they much needed, right? Again, you can never go wrong with that foundational piece of an offensive or defensive line when you're talking about rebuilding a team and rebuilding the culture of a team, right? So, all right, we're gonna move on to number 8, the Carolina Panthers. All right, they got McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, a guy who's been very consistent, a guy who has shown the ability to uh, catch deep balls, right? He's not a very fast wide receiver. He doesn't have those fast twitch muscles um, like a slot receiver might have. But with that being said, he is a big body, right? And he does have the ability to go up and catch balls in uh in while he's being challenged, right? So with that being said, I do think he's a talented wideout. I do think he will have some success in the NFL. And Carolina Panthers, hey, look, let me tell you something. Those guys came on and played hard toward the back end of the season. Obviously, we know they didn't have much success on the winning side, but those guys got to a point at the end of the year where they felt like, hey, look, we can compete with these teams on this level, and we need to make sure we go out and give it our all. And I think the Carolina Panthers on the back end of the season with Bryce Young, they had some success in doing that. So by matching a younger wide receiver, okay, with Bryce Young, somebody who's just started out, then you still have guys like Alan Thielen, who's a veteran, who is, you know, pretty good his damn self. I think they're setting themselves up to have some success over there in Carolina. Will it be right away? No, I don't think so. But again, Carolina Panthers, hey, they say, you know what? We need to give our young guys some help. All right. And they did that by addressing the wide receiver position. And I think they got a good pickup by McMillan from Arizona. Very consistent guy. Like I said, big body, able to go catch the ball in traffic. Again, not a real route technician, but is a very good talent and can stretch the field. All right. So we got at number 9, the New Orleans Saints with Kelvin Banks Jr. That's the guy from Texas. Um, Offensive tackle. Again, hey, you never can go wrong with that foundational piece, as I mentioned earlier, right? As you can see, man, in this particular draft, a lot of guys are going either offensive line or defensive line. So either they want to get to the quarterback or they want to protect their quarterback, right? Again, the New Orleans Saints are in a funny position because you know their quarterback situation is in question, right? A lot of people thought Shador might go to New Orleans, but again, New Orleans said, no, I think we'll address that later. And they went with number 9. They went with an offensive tackle. And again, a foundational piece. So whoever is going to be back there throwing the ball, they're saying, hey, look, we want to give you the best chance to be successful. And they did that. So they addressed the position that they also need, right? We don't know the situation with Carr. Could be okay, maybe not. Who knows? But they said, hey, if he is able to go, we have somebody out there on that edge that's going to give him a little bit of protection, something better than what we brought to the table last year, right? Now we got at number 10, the Chicago Bears. They went tight end, Coastal Loveland, right, from Michigan. Now this guy right here, from what I saw, he's a guy that can create matchup issues, right? I'm a Michigan fan. I've always been a Michigan fan. Especially when one of my favorite coach was down there, Jim Harbaugh. I know a guy down there on the coaching staff, Mr. Morgan. And again, Michigan right now is a team that's rebuilding, obviously, right? And with that being said, I think this tight end right here, he's talented. Like I said, he's able to create matchup problems. I think they used him pretty good last year. Do I think he's the most talented wide out? I mean, excuse me, tight end in the draft. Um, Not necessarily. I think he does some stuff good. I think he needs help with a few other things, but this league has turned into a league to where the tight end now is not necessarily tight to the end, right? He's flexed out. And he's one of those kind of guys that can give you that potential matchup problem without him being tight on the end. But again, Chicago Bears are essentially trying to set up the team to win immediately, which I think every NFL team should be putting themselves in the position to build and to win immediately. But they're giving Caleb Williams another weapon at the tight end position, somebody who can create matchup problems. So I do think they addressed the position. That's fine. I don't think they went on a limb or anything by going and get this guy. So good job. Kudos to those guys. Number 11. Excuse me. We went Mikael Williams, Edge, Georgia. Again, a foundational piece, right? San Francisco 49ers. We know that those guys have lived and died by their defense these last, I don't know, almost decade almost potentially, right? Has had one of the top defenses in the league this year. They tapered off, had a lot of injuries, didn't do very well, right? Didn't make the playoffs, first time in a very long time. And with that being said, I they addressed it a position that they need, right? You never can go wrong with that foundational piece. So you got Bosa over there, right? Your linebacker situation is not as great as it has been in the past, but if you can disrupt that line, man, it's always a good thing. So yeah, I think the San Francisco 49ers absolutely did a great job by going and get a edge rusher because again, like I said, those guys have lived and died by their defense. So it's no surprise that these guys are going to say, "Hey, look, we need somebody that can get back there and get to the quarterback." And I think they did that by going and get Mikael Williams from Georgia. All right, we're gonna get to the star now, the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, they went out and got Tyler Booker, right? Um, Alabama. He's an offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman, right? He could play right guard or he can play left guard. Okay. With that being said, look, Zach Martin has retired. Okay. The Cowboys are in a situation right now where they need several different positions. You know, I think they need to address the interior defensive line. I think they need to address the cornerback position, and I think they need to address the running back position as well as the wide receiver position. So right now, the Cowboys could have went any way, any one of those positions, right? And I think the fans would have been, excited or happy about it. But again, Jerry Jones is saying, hey, look, we need to protect our quarterback, Dak Prescott, who's not been the healthiest guy um, last maybe 4 years or so. And they went and got a interior offensive lineman, something that they needed to address because Zach Martin has retired. So I don't see a problem with the Dallas Cowboys going to get an interior lineman. Um, Hopefully they can address the other positions within the draft. Um, with that being said, I think they went and got somebody that they needed. Right? They probably looked at this. They tried to make a deal with the Texans. Right? They tried to make some a trade situation with the Texans, but for whatever reason that didn't happen. And now they're at number 12, and they went off the offensive lineman. Right. All right. We got the Miami Dolphins at number 13. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, Michigan. Look, let me tell you something. Michigan is one of those programs that traditionally produces uh, good defensive linemen that are good in college. Sometimes they get to the league and they're just not as good. Again, Cowboys, we're having a problem with a defensive lineman that came from Michigan, but Kenneth Grant, I think, is a not an example of that. This guy is tough. This guy is strong. He plays with great leverage for his size, and I think that the Miami Dolphins did a great job by going addressing defensive tackle and putting a guy in there that can play right away, that can cause some disruption. So I think the Miami Dolphins did exactly what they needed to do by going get an interior defensive tackle, and we'll see how that plays out. Right? We'll see how that plays out because they also have a few other positions that they can address. But again, a foundational piece, somebody that can play right away. Good job to Miami Dolphins, right? Okay, Indianapolis Colts, right? Um, they went Tyler Warren. To me, who I think is probably the most complete tight end in the draft. A phenomenal player, can bring a lot to the table. He's nasty when it comes to blocking. He wants to punish people. When it comes to catching the ball, he has great hands. A very wide uh, 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 a how can I say this? Um, Look, man, look, he go up and get the ball, right? So a very talented kid, and can track that ball, create matchup problems, and most importantly, you can put him down there next to that offensive tackle, and he will bury guys. So I think they did a wonderful job, especially considering Indianapolis Colts. Um, Quarterback situation, you want to put him in a position to where, he does have that reliable guy that he can check down to, whether it's Richardson or whoever they decide to put back there, right? We know those guys want to lean heavy on the run game. This is why Tyler Warren is a good pick because he can be one of those guys that you don't have to take out of the game, that you got to create certain packages for to get him involved. No, he can stay in and he can block, he can create matchups. So I think the Indianapolis Colts did a hell of a job by going and get him, especially considering the quarterback position and considering you want to give somebody that target for your quarterback when he gets in trouble. Hopefully those guys go and address that offensive line next. Hey, look, we still got a lot more to go with the NFL draft, but I don't think they went wrong by going and get that tight end from Penn State. All right. Right now we got the Atlanta Falcons, right? They win Jalen Walker, linebacker from Georgia. Look, I think this guy is talented, right? With that being said, the um, Atlanta Falcons, as far as I'm concerned, right? They're a young team. I don't know if they're building this team to win right away, but what I can tell you is this right here: they are making some moves, and I think by going and get this linebacker is an addition to some of the things that they did in the off season, and he's good, man. The kid can play. You understand what I'm saying? And one of the things that a lot of commentators and analysts said last night about the guy is that he's a leader within the team. So we'll see what kind of leadership he brings to the organization. He seems like he's excited to play. He's already in Georgia, right? So kudos to them. I think they're addressed to the position that they need. So it hadn't been any surprises up until this point, right, with the NFL draft, right? So number 16, Arizona Cardinals, right? Again, they went defensive tackle, Mississippi. They went with Walter Nolan, somebody that I'll be honest with you, I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to this guy, but from what I saw, he looks like he's a pretty talented kid. With that being said, I think that the Arizona Cardinals again is going with a foundational piece like most of these teams, and they're saying, "Hey, look, we need to find somebody that is going to be able to get after the quarterback and cause disruption." Again, a guy that I think can come play right away, based off who they have now. So shout out to the Arizona Cardinals for going to get a nice, talented defensive tackle. All right. So Cincinnati Bengals, right? Shamar Stewart. All right. So with this guy, I'm gonna be honest with you. He looks the part for sure. This guy looks like a monster. With that being said, um, I'm not necessarily all the way sold on him, right? Texas A&M, he's an edge guy. Um, Look, man, I think that sometimes scheme plays a part in how successful you are, obviously. I think coaching also plays a part in how successful you are as a player. Um, but from a standpoint of how athletic do I think this guy is? I think this guy's pretty athletic. You know, um, do I believe he's one of those guys that can make an impact right away? Not necessarily, but I do think he is a guy that can gain momentum as he plays more and more and more and more and gets uh, coached up well. With that being said, I think Cincinnati again is saying, hey, you know what? We need to get a foundational piece. We got an edge rusher. And again, these guys have to play against Lamar Jackson twice a year, right? So, with that being said, I do think he is athletic. He can move, okay? Uh, so, Cincinnati, foundational piece. We're gonna see what y'all gonna do, man. Y'all just in such a tough conference over there, man. Um, and just make sure your quarterback Joe Burrow don't turn over the ball as much as he did last year. That's a whole nother lie for another day, but we'll talk about that, right? So we're going to Seattle Seahawks, North Dakota State, Gray, uh, Garbell, offensive tackle, right? Again, the Seattle Seahawks are a team that traditionally leans heavily on the run. I think they had a lot of injuries last year. Um, I don't know what their wide receiver situation is going to be, right? So I'm assuming that these guys are probably going to come out running the ball again this year because I don't know what's going to happen down there at that wide receiver spot, man. So with that being said, they are going offensive tackle, somebody that's to protect the quarterback, um, give them an opportunity to have a guy who is good in the run. With that being said, man, I think they're addressed to the position that they needed as well. Number 18, 19. Uh, you got the kid from Ohio State, Emeka Ibuka, wide receiver. Hey, look, this kid right here, man, again, very, very consistent player. Um, Definitely athlete, 110%. Very, very athletic. Has speed. From what I saw, not a outstanding route technician, but he has the most important asset. He can create that separation to get open, right? And look, Tampa Bay, he's going to be a slot guy probably. I think, hey, with Baker Mayfield, you still got Mike Williams over there. You still got Chris Godwin over there. You still have um, very, very talented wideouts, as well as you have two pretty decent running backs. I think right now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that is on the up and up, and they're doing it with Baker Mayfield, right? Somebody who revived his career and has built a rapport with their wide receiver core and their coaching staff over there. So shout out to Tampa Bay for going wide receiver and potentially putting themselves in a position to come out of their conference next year, right? All right. So uh, Denver Broncos. Now let me tell you something. The Denver Broncos in the offseason made all kinds of moves to make sure that that defense is going to be ready for the 2025 season. And guess what? They didn't stop. They said, "Hey, we're going cornerback." The guy from UT, right? Barron, cornerback. Look, the kid can play, man. 100% the kid can play. Super duper athletic. I like that pick, man. I like what Denver is doing, how they're building over there. And again, defense first, man. Defense wins championships. And those guys made like I said, those guys made a lot of moves in the offseason as well as moves in the draft yesterday by going and get a cornerback. So shout out to those guys addressing the position that they need, right? So we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? A lot of people thought that Shador would go 21 with Pittsburgh, but guess what? Pittsburgh said, nah. We good. And Pittsburgh, you know what I'm saying? We like to really ring bells, you dig? So they went defensive tackle, right? Mike Tomlin, somebody who's going to live and buy by his defense, who's always had really good defenses traditionally. So they went defensive tackle, right? From Oregon. So I think this guy's pretty good as well. Again, is he a guy who can make an impact right away? I don't know if he can make an impact right away. It's going to depend on who they have right now, and then for their interior linemen. But with that being said, I do think he is a guy that can be coached up. But most importantly, I think the kid brings the right attitude to the table when it comes to wanting to play for a very hard nosed coach in Mike Tomlin. So shout out to Pittsburgh again, addressing something that they needed. Right? Obviously, we know they have Watt over there. So, and they have to play against Lamar Jackson. A lot of this stuff is because of that kid. I mean, he's just ridiculous. You know, you got to have somebody that can disrupt and cause a lot of problems on that defensive line. Give those offensive linemen hell. And I think by going get a defensive tackle, you are addressing the position that you absolutely need, right? So now next we got the Los Angeles Chargers. They went Omarion Hampton, running back from North Carolina. Look, I think this dude is good. I think he runs the ball extremely hard, right? He is a guy that can catch the ball out the backfield. He is a guy that can get you hard yards. Do I think he's the best back in the draft? Obviously, that's Genty. Do I think he's the second best back? I don't know. But as far as him as a talent, I think he is a talented running back, right? And this is one thing I can say. I know who is in Los Angeles, Jim Harbaugh, somebody that definitely wants to ground and pound and run that ball. And if he sees that this kid can do that for him, I trust his judgment. Because as somebody who's been observing him for as long as I can remember, he's a pretty good guy when it comes to seeking talent. So Los Angeles, they addressed to the position that they needed because they didn't have a whole lot of success from the running back spot last year, although they ran the ball a lot. They ran the ball a lot. Running backs could not stay healthy. Justin Herbert picked up the pace on the back end. But again, they're getting a guy that's traditionally been healthy and Omarion Hampton, and they address to the position that they absolutely need. Right? All right. Green Bay, right? Went with at number 23, they went with Matthew Golden. Hey, a guy that's a speedster, right? Somebody to give Jordan Love some help, right? He definitely needs some help over there. Um, did they address a position that they need? Yes, I think they did. The offensive line wasn't horribly bad. Um, the running back position was did fairly well. Um, with that being said, I think adding an addition to a speedy wide receiver is a logical choice. Again, so I'm not surprised that they went with Matthew Golden. Because again, you want to put your quarterback in the best position to be successful, and now maybe we can see a lot more play action potentially, and somebody who can peel the top off, right? So yes, they addressed the position that they need. Uh, Number 24, the Minnesota Vikings went with Donovan Jackson, Ohio State, uh, offensive guard. Yeah, Minnesota. Look, man, those guys' defense played phenomenal last year, right? Um, Obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, I think they have uh, a great talent when it comes to the wide receivers position, right? They have two really, really good wide receivers. When it comes to the running back position, they're pretty good right there. Now, the quarterback position, I don't know what that's going to look like next year, right? Um, JJ, he didn't play, right? So, with that being said, I do think by going offensive guard, you give your new quarterback a chance to be successful when you want to give him all the protection that he needs. So Minnesota going offensive guard at number 24, not a surprise. That's addressing the position that they need. Now, this right here at number 25, the New York Giants drafted, traded down to go and get a quarterback, right? Now, everybody just knew it was going to be Shador, right? But the truth of the matter is, uh, they said, nah, you're not gonna play with Shador. They went with Jackson Dart, Mississippi. Look, I'm gonna say something. I mean, people been sleeping on him this entire draft. Okay, I think the dude is pretty good, right? Has a great attitude, plays with a lot of swagger. You can tell some players, man, that they put that extra work in and they want to win. I think he's one of those guys that wants to win. He plays extremely hard. Although those guys didn't have any success last year in the SEC, um, I think he is one of those guys didn't get down on himself. He was a leader and he fought every game. He fought, and he fought. And with that being said, I think the Giants made a good decision by going to get him. You know, his fundamentals are really, really good. He has a pretty decent arm. His accuracy is not great, but again, he's one of those guys that likes to throw that ball into the slot, right? I mean, he throws the ball heavily into the slot. Now that could be something that's systematic, a scheme, but he likes to lean heavily on that slot wide receiver. And I think the Giants right now they have a very very young team and they can have some success. So shout out to them by going to get them a quarterback because obviously that is definitely a position that they need, and the kid can learn from a veteran like Russell Wilson and a good guy with a great attitude and Jameis Winston, somebody that we all know will that boy throw the kitchen sink at you. You understand what I'm saying? Jameis gonna let that thing fly regardless. You know what I mean? Uh all right. So number 26, Atlanta. Again, those guys made a trade to get down to that number 26. So they went with uh James Force Jr., an edge guy. Again, going defense. Hey, they went linebacker first. Now they're going a defensive lineman. Look, man, I'm gonna tell you something. These guys are not playing over there. They are trying to build a defense, and they're trying to do it through the draft. And I think this year, man, honestly, it's a lot of great defensive players out there looking to make a name for themselves. With that being said, considering the defensive line situation over there, he is a guy that can come and play right away. So, a guy went to Tennessee, played in the SEC. He can go ahead and contribute right away. All right. Um, Baltimore Ravens, uh, at number 27, they went with Starks. Um, Georgia safety. I think again you got Baltimore, a team who historically has had really good defenses, and truth be told, they want to lean heavily on their defense. Again, maybe take some of that pressure off Lamar Jackson, okay, to have to win these games himself by going get a safety, a guy who can play inside the box. He also is a very good cover guy, right? So I think they addressed the position that they needed, right? Um, and with that being said, we'll see what his contribution is right away. But he is a guy that comes from Kirby Smart. Kirby said that the guy's a leader and he plays hard and he brings 110% each and every day he steps into the locker room. So, good character guy. So that's awesome for him, right? All right. So the Detroit Lions went defensive tackle. I think this was absolutely what they needed to do, right? They went with Talik Williams from Ohio State, and guess what? I think this kid can play. I think he can play. You know, and I think they addressed it a position that they needed to address in the defensive lineman part. So with that being said, man, shout out to them. You understand what I'm saying? Shout out to Detroit. You know what I'm saying? I got my boy Coach Gary, man. He's a Lions fan. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm pretty sure he's excited about them going and get a position they absolutely need. Um, Washington Commanders at 29. Josh uh, Corley Jr., offensive tackle. Hey, look, man, you got Jaden Daniels over there, man. You went and picked up Debo Samuel in the off season. I don't know if I 100% agree with that, but hey, with that being said, Debo is a playmaker, and again, all you want to do is give Jaden Daniels a little bit more time back there. You want to put him in the best position to be successful, and I think they did that by going and getting the offensive tackle. Shout out to the Commanders. Buffalo Bills went cornerback. Okay, all right, they went cornerback. Maxwell Harrison, Kentucky cornerback. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know much about this kid, so I'd be doing him a disservice by saying what it is I know about him. I don't know much about him, but this is what I can tell you: the Buffalo Bills absolutely needs to address the defensive side of the ball, and if you can get a talented cornerback, you can address that position because it's not somebody in free agency that's catching your eye. Then that's exactly what you do. All right. The Eagles at number 31 traded and they went and got a linebacker, something that I think they absolutely needed. I think the linebacker position was a little bit weak. And they got rid of some guys in the off season. So with that being said, they traded down when got Jahad Campbell from Alabama. I think he's just a guy that they want to put in right away. Say, hey, look, we need you to make plays for us, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go in. He's going to make plays. Alabama has traditionally had pretty decent linebackers come out of the draft the last, couple of years. So shout out to those dudes, man. And Philly, I hate to say this as a Cowboys fan, man, it's going to be tough next year and the year after that. So we need to gear up and make some moves, baby. Let's go, Jerry. Come on, Jerry. Let's go. All right. So Kansas City Chiefs are number 32. They went with Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, Ohio State. All right, man. That was the all 32 teams. You understand what I'm saying? Kansas City, I think they addressed it at the position that they needed. Pat Mahomes last year, something just didn't look right. I couldn't really pinpoint it, but when you go back and you look at it, look in that Super Bowl, that offensive line got whipped. I'm talking about got whipped bad. With that being said, hey, you want to give your future Hall of Famer some time back there to make that offense click, like we know it can, like we've traditionally seen it do. With that being said, by starting with that foundational piece, I think they have addressed that, and they want to give Patrick Mahomes the best chance to be successful, right? Because we know what he can do. And last year in that Super Bowl, nah, it wasn't cutting it. Even in the Super Bowl when they lost against Tampa Bay, that offensive line got whipped. So Andy Reid is saying, hey, you know what? We can't continue to have our quarterback get pressured like this and put him in positions that he's not traditionally in, right? So with that being said, shout out to them, man. Look, I just want to address this right here, the Shador Sanders situation. When it comes to Shador, man, um, look, it's something that these teams see that, the average eye, the average person who consumes the product of football cannot see. You know, they interview these guys. They take a look at them, and they say, "Hey, you do this well. You need to work on this. I think we can change this. I think we can help you get better at this." And I think it's in a position right now where a guy like Shador, they don't want to take a chance or something that they don't like about him. Now, I don't think the interviews that he did helped him out much, but if that's your personality, be who you are, right? But the NFL will humble you, right? And no one player is ever going to be bigger than that shield, right? With that being said, I do think he will get drafted. He just getting drafted. He just didn't get drafted on night one, right? Not a first rounder. That doesn't necessarily mean that uh that doesn't necessarily mean that he won't have success. That just means that, hey, you know what? We don't rate you as high as you rate yourself, right? Or as high as you think you should have been drafted. Um, with that being said, he may go second round, he may go third round, who knows, right? But again, he's a kid that's grown up with a lot of pressure on top of him of his dad being Deion Sanders, prime, and man, is one thing when somebody asks you a question and then you bring up your dad. Look, your dad not playing, bro. Nobody cares about who your dad is. They care about what you can bring to the team right here, right now. And when you referencing him in these interviews, I don't think that's doing you a service. It's doing you a disservice, right? With that being said, man, I think Shador is a good player, but he does have flaws in his game. You know, he holds on to the ball way too long. I don't know how well he reads defenses. Um, do I think he's very accurate with the ball? Absolutely. He's definitely accurate with the ball. Does he have a monster arm? Not necessarily, but he has a good enough arm to make the deep throws that he needs to make. Um, but you have to be humble at all times. You have to be humble at all times. You understand what I'm saying? With that being said, man, I think when it comes to him, obviously Prom has been his coach since he's been a child, right? We don't even know how he's going to look underneath the new regime of coaches, a new regime of coaching style, and uh, you know, you can take that for what it is, but at the same time, it is a question, right? It's a question on Shador. So when somebody like Dan Orlovsky gives a fair assessment of Shador Sanders, right? And Dion comes out and says, "Damn, Dan, you sound like a hater." No, man. Like, people got to stop this, man. Y'all can't, start calling people haters just because they're giving a fair assessment on how they see particular players from their lens, right? That's how they see it from their lens. I think Dan Orlovsky was very fair about the way he assessed Shador, right? So, with that being said, man, I don't understand why you would be calling Dan Orlovsky a hater. I absolutely don't think he's a hater. I think he is uh, giving a fair assessment from a lens of a guy who could care less whether Shador makes it to the NFL or not. You know, he gets nothing out of quote unquote, like Prime said, hating on Shador. No, man. This is what it is, man. These people have to be creditable. People tune in and try to find the least biased opinions on TV, on radio, on streaming platforms, whatever the situation may be. And I think yesterday Dan Orlovsky gave a perfect assessment of Shador. Doesn't mean those things can't be fixed. Just means that, hey, you know what? This is what I see when I look at him. So, Prime, pump your brakes, man. Like, we got love for you, but Dan not hating, man. I think Dan is sometimes when you look yourself in the mirror, sometimes it don't look as good as you think, right? And I think that's what happened yesterday. Uh, Look, man, and then we're gonna move on to this last situation with Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp has stepped away from ESPN, considering he has some trouble in paradise, right? If you don't know, he is been accused allegedly of sexual assault on a young lady, a 20-year-old OnlyFans model. And right now, man, I think it was best for him to step away. Because look, man, I'm gonna be real with you. It's not looking good for Mr. Sharp, right? He's just looking like an old school dude who is getting caught up with his fame, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's no reason for you to be putting yourself in positions like that, um, where you are literally tricking yourself off the street. You messing up the bag, bro. You know, you're 54 years old and you're falling victim to somebody who's half your age. And I don't know how you don't see this coming, boss. Like for real. Like I don't know how you see it coming, but that's how it is when you start to feel yourself, right? And sometimes when you're feeling yourself, you cloud your own judgment. You understand what I'm saying? But look, man, people warned him. They said, hey, man, stay away from them young girls, man. You understand what I'm saying? Hey, look, find somebody your age. I'm not saying you need to find somebody your age, but what I'm saying is you need to find somebody that doesn't have the same motives as somebody that's a OnlyFans model, right? We already know what she about. Come on, man. Her whole thing is appearance is what sells, right? So for you to fall victim to that, man, it's just disappointing, man. Again, man, you stepped away from ESPN, and right now, you're still doing your podcast show. You just signed that deal, right? $100 million deal for your show, man. It's crazy how like Cat Williams say, they can ruin you in 2 weekends. Now I don't know if it's 2 weekends, but it's looking like she is trying to put a stain or a tarnish on your reputation, whatever that looks like within your industry and against your peers. I don't know you personally, right? Uh, all I know is you from the personality that's on television, right? The personality that's on a streaming platform. So now again, he has okay. So Larry says he has a second accuser. See, that's how it happens, man. See, this is how it happens, right? All it takes is that one. It takes that one person to come out and say something, and then now you're in a position to where somebody's saying, "Oh wow, okay, oh I see what's going on." So you know what? Let me go ahead and come forward now. Somebody else was brave enough. Now, and this is the problem with these kind of situations. So now, whether it's true or not, I mean, you can be convicted in the court of public opinion, and public opinion may not put you in jail, but it damn sure can make your fucking life bad. Okay? It can make your life bad. Not forever, you know. Storms don't last forever, but it can cause you a whole lot of heartache and pain for the time being. With that being said, man, I hope they come to a resolution on this particular problem regarding Shannon Sharp. And, I hope he learns from his lesson because I'm gonna be real with you, man. He out here looking like He looking like a fool, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. You looking crazy out here, Unc. That's what you say they call you, Unc. Unc, you looking crazy out here, big dog. You know. With that being said, man, I don't know what the situation is with the second accuser. But you know what? We got a Google box over here. Let's look it up right here real quick. All right, it says another woman accusing Shannon Sharp of sex assault in defamation lawsuit. Hmm. This dropped. This is from people.com. This dropped about 45 minutes ago. Hey, if Tony Bugsby, hey, if Tony Bugsby has this, hey, I'm gonna tell you something, man. If Tony Bugsby is representing this young lady too, hey, man, this dude is ridiculous, man. Tony Bugsby, man, he might need to watch his back, cause this boy getting out of control out here, man. I don't know who's representing this young lady, but it's a Jane. It's a Jane Doe. Um, they're not giving her name. Now, that's one thing I don't agree with. Now, if you were going to come out here and you're going to accuse somebody of something, right, and they're getting, you know, buried in the court of public opinion, right, and people are tarnishing their names and people dragging them through the mud, but you get to, remain hidden. Nobody knows you. I think that's pretty unfair. My deal is this right here. If you're bold enough to come out and say, "Hey, this guy did this to me," put it on Front Street, right? Let's see who you are. But see, the reason why a lot of these women don't do that is because when people start to dissect who they are, right? Sometimes that can backfire on you. So I don't agree with that at all, man. But with that being said, I do think Mr. Shannon Sharp may end up having more accusers at this point, right? They know he just signed the contract. They believe that he has money currently. And let's not act like he didn't try to sell her the first one. He offered the young lady 10 million. Now that's not no small piece of change. You understand what I'm saying? And with that being said, she turned it down. So will they settle outside of court? I have no idea. But as it sits right now, I think settling probably could have been a good idea for the simple fact of what Larry just put into the chat, a second accuser, right? If you settle, nobody knows about this, that second accuser probably doesn't even come forward, right? You carry on with your life, you got your $100 million deal, you still have your job at ESPN, and everything is everything. But you put yourself in a position now to have a second, maybe a third, or fourth, or fifth, or sixth. I mean, the list could go infinite when it comes to these caliber of men, right? Men who are on television, men that have money, right? Anybody can come out and say, well, X, Y, and Z, he did this, and this, But all this is allegedly, man. Everything has to play out. With that being said, man, that's my thoughts on that. We a little bit over an hour, man. I appreciate everybody tuning in to it. Man, y'all holler at me, man. I'm going to start trying to do these a little bit more often, man. I'm out.